right, let's go ahead and tell you a little bit who we have up here tonight. Starting with my far right, Garry Hynes, the first woman to win a Tony Award for directing a play for the Beauty Queen of Lebanon in 1998. In 1975, she co-founded The Druid and has been its artistic director for much of that time, and she's got a big show that's about to open in how many days?
I'm not thinking about it. I think
I'm sorry to rudely
Friday.
awaken you.
Friday. Friday.
That'll be Richard III, folks.
Yeah.
Direct Shakespeare, right?
Yes.
That guy. So. Let's take a quick look at what's about to open. Richard III. All right, seated next to her, Leah C. Gardiner is an Obie Award-winning stage and film director known for the incisive clarity, that was the New York Times, of her work with physicality and text. She's overseen the premieres of two Pulitzer Prize finalists and is currently director of Intozaki Shange's For Color Girls at the Public Theater. Let's take a look at that. Color Girls. That's at the Public right now. And finally, Tamilla Woodard is the Associate Artistic Director of WP Theater. She is slated to direct the world premiere of Donetta Lavinia Gray's Where We Stand. She's currently the Associate Director of Hadestown on Broadway, and let's show a fun little scene from there.
Everybody hungry, everybody tired, everybody slaves for the sweat of his brow. The wage is nothing and the work is hard. It's a graveyard in Hadestown. Way down, Hadestown, way down under the ground.
Right. So I've had the good fortune to encounter each of your work. Garry, actually, the very first Broadway show I saw when I moved to New York was The Beauty Queen. It's been, I guess, 21 years, and I was poor. I was like mostly just dropping $5 here and there on some black box shows, Uncle Vanya and that kind of thing. It was great. And suddenly I decided to splurge and on Beauty Queen, and it was incredibly. I just remember I was in the mood for some good, something lavish and dysfunctional and Irish, and I got it all in heavy doses that night. And so thank you for that.
That's all you're welcome.
And Leah, I got to see For Color Girls last night, and it was wonderful. And all of you have to go out and see it. And of course, I saw Hadestown just a few months ago, as we were discussing earlier. But I want to kind of start with a question to you, Garry. I feel like when it comes to cinema, a lot of people have some clear sense of what a director does. I don't really feel that's the same with theater, and I'm wondering if you would agree with that.
Yes, I think the sense of a film director somehow or other, you know, even the credit is a film by. When it comes to theatre, people don't quite understand. You know, first of all, I suppose the responsibility of it, because you know, it's all the decisions you take are yours, and if something goes wrong, in fact, you're responsible. So if you miscast an actor or it doesn't work out with the member of the design team or whatever. So I think it's the responsibility part of it, and then the fact that you, having put this group of people together, you have to create the circumstances in which they can do their best possible work.
Leah, I didn't really know for a long time, but as I understand it, the work of a director in many productions ends as soon as it opens. Is that correct?
Yes, pretty much, except if you're asked to come back and upkeep the show. So sometimes they'll call you back if the stage manager is struggling with a moment or has questions, then you'll come in and you'll watch it and you'll give the stage manager notes. But I think really in the last 5 years, it feels like the director's work is never done, because you're constantly asked to come to see people who are coming to see the show, or you're asked to do post-show discussions, or you're asked, I mean, you
have to glad hand quite a bit more nowadays.
Very much so. Much more, I'd say, within the last 5 years.
So you can't really move on to your next project necessarily.
Well, no, you can, and you do, but you're double dutying. Like you're working 2 jobs, basically. Sometimes 3 jobs, depending.
I'm kind of curious about, with each of the productions, if there's a single sort of big challenge you can identify with each of them to sort of give us a sense of the work. Tamilla, with Hadestown, is there something that you were dealing with that was just, I mean, this is a big show. Was there something in particular you can identify as a challenge that you were grappling with for that one?
My job on Hadestown as the associate was really to be a right hand to Rachel and to sort of like try to intuit where she needed an extra 2 minutes of thinking or 4 more hands, which I counted my feet in. And she's an incredible leader and also an incredible collaborator. And so one of the things that I think you see when you go to see that show is that there are a lot of minds at work and a lot of like the very best sort of creative, collaborative process of people who actually trust that they're going to think this into existence is happening on that stage. And so there is no sense of like, it can't happen. There's just a sense of like, oh, is that what we're looking for? Let's go find it. And so really my job was to just help support her vision in that way. And then in this way, because, Rachel's moving on to 2 other things at the same time, to maintain the vision with the extraordinary company that we have there,
the connection,
our stage managers and
all the other associates. So in these last several months, has Hadestown, is it constantly getting tweaked?
It was tweaked into absolute like refined state and it's maintaining that refined state, maintaining the tightrope that show exists on. Wow. And that requires everybody every single day and every single moment of that performance to like show up. There's no such thing as a second show at Hadestown.
Is there a point at which you feel like I'm actually kind of relaxing, we're in a groove, or is it stressful every night?
It's not stressful, but it is like, it's fine work. That is what it is. And so if you take your mind off of the fine work, you fall off the edge. Like, it's fine work. Mm-hmm. So, and I think, that's the same I saw for Color Girls just a couple of days ago. And I'm like, that's fine work. That's work that requires every single person in that room to take care of each other and to take care of each of those moments. Or else you're delivering something that's not what everyone agreed on when you opened.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's That's really the difference, right? Especially with off-Broadway and Broadway. Off-Broadway, you, the director, go and kind of maintain. But on Broadway, your associate will go and maintain. But ultimately, I'm sure, the idea is you have set very specifically what the rules and the parameters are for the production. And it's a job, and you go in every day, no matter what your job is, you go in and you make certain that those parameters are maintained and the rules are maintained.
Garry, I'm curious. You are with Richard III. This is a play that's been performed on and off for, I don't know, 3 or 4 centuries.
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a burden, I imagine, carrying that. Or do you, when you're doing something like Shakespeare, do you just kind of try to shut out all of that historical kind of weight? Clearly you've done something that's new, that's never been done, and yet also has been.
Well, the context here would probably be important in the sense that Shakespeare is the national playwright of England, which is having a bit of difficulty at the moment defining who or what it is. But Shakespeare wasn't really performed much in Ireland. And when it was performed, it was performed as a kind of a colonised version of the plays. So in that context then, actually sort of producing Shakespeare where we use our own voices, where the voices are Irish, and where we don't look for references that are English, that's a different kind of process, and that's part of the process. So in a way, you do have to, when you're doing great plays of any kind, I think you do have to be very careful not to look down, not to see everything all that extraordinary achievement that's, gone before you. And you have to, in a sense, I suppose you have to do these plays like they were new plays. And block out all the rest of the noise.
But to what extent, say, Leah, were you actually going back to the original or the earlier productions, the movie version of For Color Girls?
Never saw it.
Huh?
Never saw it.
Didn't see it. And that was clear from the beginning for you?
Never saw it, never saw a production of it. Only ever read the 1976 version in college, and then the 2010 version 2 years ago. So I came at it very much like a new play. And then Ntozake gave me the freedom before she passed to kind of manipulate and play and stretch and pull and add poems and turn them into songs. And she really just gave me free reign in many ways. And so, but with the blessing of the estate. Mm-hmm. So I just went to town.
And she passed last year, correct?
She did.
So give me some sense of the conversation that you're having. This is something that's been around for 40, 45 years, correct? Just give us some insight into that conversation you're having, especially since she didn't get to see, what just opened a few weeks ago.
Yeah, that's such a great question. I was telling these two fine people next to me that with the set, when she passed several months before we started designing the set. And so I thought it would be really interesting to find a way to honor her. So we turned the set, the theater that it's in, the Martinson Theater, which is the theater upstairs in the public, which is a very sort of straight theater. We turned it into what feels like an Egyptian ankh. It's a bit of a circular, not necessarily circular, but what's this shape called?
Sort of an oval or an ellipse?
Oval, there it is,
Okay.
Thank you. An oval, and then it has a
no, I know,
proscenium.
I
I feel like you right here, Garry. And so there's a proscenium as much as there is an oval in the shape of an ankh. And I use that because that's a symbol, Egyptian symbol of life and death and rebirth and resurrection. And I thought that would be a really lovely way to kind of bring her into the production. And then I also use her, she was in the original Broadway production. So I use her speaking at the very, very top of the show, where she says, ever since I realized there was someone called a color girl, and I have that looping as these new sort of 2019 color girls are walking in to take position into the show. So there's a lot of that in sort of honoring the elder and honoring Ntozake that I tried very hard to do, recognizing that by keeping her spirit in the room, clearly what happened in 76, at least in my opinion, would be in the room with us. So it's not as if I was taking what was done before, similarly to the situation you're in so much as recognizing that those voices existed and those voices are real, and they too should be featured in this 2019-2020 version.
I think that's a good moment to sort of pivot to that speech that we had earlier, that Rachel Chavkin speaking about this sort of infamous phrase about the pipeline. And Tamilla, I think you posted something on social today saying this is not a pipeline issue. Is this just one of those kinds of eternal cliches you kind of encountered in the industry?
Yeah, it's eternal, and yes, it's eternal. And luckily, I work at WP Theater, formerly Women's Project. Lisa McNulty is the producing artistic director there, and we have a festival called the Pipeline Festival, and it is not. It is
cheeky.
It is exactly cheeky. It's like, oh, if there's a problem with a pipeline, here's the pipeline, And it's like, okay, these people exist. They exist. Even it's. It requires certainly some effort, but it also requires imagination. It also requires that you trust people. I think, as you guys talked about earlier, like you can invest not just time and the resources of your theater, but you should invest your money. You should invest your money in these extraordinary artists, and so that they're not stuck at the level of off-Broadway or off-Broadway, but that they're allowed to rise into a place where they can make a living. And I love this city that I live in, where these many off-Broadway theaters, and we try to pay people very well. However, you have to work your tail off as an off-Broadway director to pay your rent, to live like a human being, to pay for your child's school, to go on like a little week vacation. You have to do a lot to do that. And so the ceiling is really real. And that ceiling has people who are gatekeepers. And it's just about trusting folks with the money.
Anything to add to that, Garry?
Yeah, I think I would agree. I mean, I was again talking backstage when the Tony nominations came out, and somebody said to me, how would it feel to be the first woman to win a Tony Award for direction? And I literally could not believe it, because I knew the Tony Awards were at least 50 years old. I also, I basically got into the theatre in this city. I went, when I was working here as a student in the early 70s, that's where my theatre sensibilities developed. I knew how influential women had been in the American theatre, and I found it very difficult to believe, till I realised, of course, Tony Awards are really only one aspect of the American theatre, because they represent commercial theatre. Mm-hmm. So it's about money. Money is the king in commercial theatre, and in that sense, of course, the men who are investing want people who look like them.
Yeah. So you've worked in different spaces, different countries. The word pipeline, I mean, regardless of the industry, it just seems to me like the perpetual dodge to do the right thing. Does it sound the same wherever you go?
It doesn't quite sound the same. I mean, it certainly did sound the same. I do know that, for instance, up to, say, 15 years ago, the situation in Ireland and the situation in England was somewhat similar. But now, actually, many of the major theatres in the UK are women. I mean, people like Deborah Warner, was the start of it. But now, probably the top, not the top directors leading institutions, but the top directors in the UK are female. And that represents a sea change from what it was when I was starting out.
Leah, do you have a moment that you see as your breakthrough, or who you credit with, getting you through the pipeline, if you will?
Wow, you think I'm through the pipeline? My God.
Outside the pipeline?
Well, let's say let me get to Broadway, and then let's talk again.
See, for me, I don't know. It's maybe I see a show like what I saw last night, and I can understand what you're saying completely. As a spectator, for me, it's a great performance. It was moving and powerful and spoke to the moment. It made me think and feel. And so I think of you as someone who has made it. And I guess to the extent that you get to do these shows which are exciting and which New Yorkers want to go and experience, were there certain moments that you can identify prior to now where you thought, like, that was critical to getting you to the next stage, or certain people?
Okay, that's a great question. That's a different question, I
All
think.
right, let's go with that question.
Yes. So, again, we were sharing this backstage earlier. I feel like in the last 10 years, I started really truly understanding that my work is very different, in the sense that the kinds of plays that I do, just the shows that I've done in New York, Born Bad, Generations, It Pretty Hurts, For Color Girls, those are 4 that I can think of. There's a British play that I did at Manhattan Theatre Club, a Penny Skinner play. The name escapes me at the moment, but all very similar in the sense that conceptually, I kind of created the concept behind the piece. And so I think that in recognizing that I recognize that's who I am as a director. I think now I can have a conversation with myself as an artist. But I've been chasing for the last 23 years. I've been at this for 23 years. And for the last 23 years, I've been chasing job after job after job after job to pay for ramen noodles. And so it's been an interesting, I'd say maybe the last 10 years, recognizing what you're talking about, where I realize, okay, this is who I am as an artist, and this is how I self-define, and I'm okay with that. So my hope and prayer is that that kind of aesthetic can live beyond the off-Broadway and off-Broadway aesthetic here in New York. And not that I'm requesting that I myself make it to Broadway, but I'm just saying that, as with Rachel, with Hadestown, we begin to think about sort of the muscularity of Broadway in a different way, and recognize that there are voices by women that can live in that genre beautifully, healthfully, and financially, and are viable pieces of art that people want to come and see.
Do you have to travel a lot to get the next gig?
Absolutely.
That's going to be hard. You're juggling all kinds of things, I imagine.
All the time. A child, and then my husband is an actor, and he's away a lot. So there's a lot of juggling.
And
We have a village.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Tamilla?
Oh God, I'm like, I'm laughing just because it's ridiculous. Like I just, I came from New Haven today. I'll go to Boston at the end of the week. I've spent several weeks in San Francisco. Yes, I think we were talking about the fact that, like, we are made to be multitaskers. And not only do you have to multitask, you have to like it has to be a home run every single time. And so, I have a very nice husband. He's at home, listening. It is, you go where the conversation is, you go where the work is, you stay where they love you.
Do you encounter, I guess, people who are trying to hold on to their piece of the pie? Is that a sort of a face-to-face kind of thing that happens? The people who are trying to essentially not cede terrain. Is this something that you encounter, Garry, even at your point in?
No, because I think that attributes kind of human failings to only one sex. I mean, we're all, people who get somewhere tend to, want to protect their space and so on and so forth. But given that sort of men have had the running in it, then, there is an obligation always and for women, there's an obligation to reach down and help somebody else up the ladder. And, the theatre is very competitive. I mean, it's not about art. I think men, too, are considerably better at managing their careers and at putting down markers and at sort of that whole process, I think, comes easier to them than it does to women. I think that would have been part of the process. Certainly, I know for me, I mean, because I'm in a different situation than my two colleagues. I mean, the fact that I've been running a theatre company all of my life, I'm absolutely certain that I would not be in the theatre today had I to go out and look for jobs. I wouldn't have been able for it. I might be able for it now at the age I am, but I wouldn't have had that kind of confidence. I wouldn't have been able to make the kind of compromises and so on. I just wouldn't have been able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been very lucky and been very fortunate that I've been able to be in a position to somehow or other shape something of what I do. Although, of course, obviously you're constantly having to make compromises with money, finance, and so on and so forth. But, more women leaders of more theatres. I think that's probably the single most important thing that needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Yep. Absolutely.
Were there particular shows that you saw at a certain age that made you realize that you wanted to do what you do? Tamilla, you want to go
Oh
with
my
that?
gosh, yeah. I remember seeing Mary Zimmerman's Metamorphoses. I don't remember what year it was, and just going like, this is the thing about both of these women here, and the women that I really admire, is that the work is lush. It is inventive. It is like staggeringly dimensional. There's rain, Garry, in your play.
Well, there's rain all the time in my life. That's why.
And it's just like, it is just so full of an invitation to the audience to lean forward and imagine. And I find that is something that is what I think of when I'm sitting in a theater in a place been directed by a director who is a woman, is that there's a kind of lush invitation to your imagination. And I remember sitting in Metamorphosis and going, there's a pool on stage, but that could just be a thing. No, they did an entire acrobatic, beautiful love story in a pool that was about yearning, and it was about humanity, and it was about forgiveness. And that there's some excavation of what it means to be human inside of the work that I think that we're doing particularly, or about the current world and the leadership that we have right now, that just turns me on and makes me really happy to be an artist, but really happy to be an artist that's female.
Leah?
I would say when I was a child, my mother brought me up to New York. I'm from Philadelphia originally, and she brought me up to see Sarafina, the musical. And we sat in the balcony on the first row. She was so excited that she could get those tickets. And I remember watching that production and thinking, I can do this. Like this is exactly what I love about me.
Was this consistent with something that was already happening in your life, or was it a complete just...
The poetry of the language in that musical was just stunning. And I was a poet and still am a poet. And the music and the musical sort of the relationship that music had to movement and the passion and compassion for the political situation that that they were telling on stage. All of that, I think, just spoke to me and made me feel compelled to find a way into the theater. And, you know, I guess, I don't know how many years later I did, and here I am now.
2 or 3.
Yeah. Yes, you're very kind.
How about you, Garry?
Well, I'd actually say probably it was a theatre I saw in this city in the early 70s. Joe Chaikin, Meredith Monk, theatre made by people who looked like me, i.e. looked the same age as me, and was made in rooms, in small rooms. And that was really, it was the combination of that and a sense that, you know, I could maybe try and, with people who I was making theatre in university with, go and try and recreate that in the town I came from in Galway. And that was that's how it came about. There's no doubt at all, just to say, if I had wanted to direct, for me to try and access the professional theatre in Ireland would have, since it exclusively existed only then in Dublin, there's no way I would have had any access to it, or would have dreamed of having any access to it. So,
Anyone in the audience have any questions now for our esteemed directors? We'll ask you to go to the mic if you could. Why don't you go ahead and move up there if you don't mind. What's your name?
My name's Raphael.
Hi.
Hi.
Go ahead, throw your question.
It's a little low. I'm an actor, and I've worked in a lot of different, regional theaters around the country. And one thing that I was thinking about as you guys were discussing is, especially in terms of how do you move forward and how do you get through this pipeline. And one thing that I encounter a lot in these rooms when you're working is this idea of, oh, well, that these are the people that we're performing for. And I'm in twofold. I think it's a cop-out, but I also wonder your takes on how you address that of the traditional theater audience. And I think sometimes it's used as an excuse of why people aren't trusted and given this shot, because they're like, well, this is our subscriber base, so we have to satisfy the subscribers. So it's kind of twofold of I feel like that is a cop-out, but also is true. And how do you, in two ways, one, direct without having that idea affect your vision, while also addressing who's going to be in the room, that's watching these shows and how they're going to receive it, especially when it comes towards telling a black show for an audience that's going to be mostly white.
Well, I'll start actually, because this came up with my cast. Oh wait, where are you going? Come back so I can talk to you. Thank you. This came up with my cast where we had a couple of previews, and the cast, they were sort of saying, it's just, how are we going to access this? This is just, whew. And then I jokingly said, listen, we're extended 3 times. We've got 4 weeks. Let's get past the subscribers and let's move on. And we're playing we're playing it for those people who will be in the room when we know we need them to be in the room. And I think that, it's not to discount the subscribers, but it's also, it was more about giving the freedom to my cast to recognize that they are playing for themselves. And that ultimately who receives their play, it's and you're in a sandbox and you've got your bucket and you've got your shovel, whoever comes over to play, great. But if they're not willing to play, there's not a lot you can do. And that is my philosophy. I really do believe that ultimately the plays that we make, we want the audience to be able to appreciate and access and feel and experience. But as artists, and particularly artists of color, we have to make the art that feels most organic to us. And I guarantee if it feels that to you, it will feel that to everyone in the room.
I would also say that in thinking about like artistic leadership too, that one of the jobs of leadership is to make sure that the artist whom you've invited to create work at your theater, that they have an audience that can respond to that work. And that's hard work to do. That's really, really hard work to do. And it doesn't mean that that audience is exclusive, but I think that you do your audience a service to make sure that there are different kinds of people represented that help lead you forward into leaning into the story, that help you feel invited into the story also. And it's super hard work. And we're like, I mean, I think every theater here in town is trying to figure it out, you know, and certainly WP is trying to figure it out. How do you support the artists that are on the stage with making sure that the audience also represents some of the people for whom the story was made?
And I think it's really different in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there are so many initiatives, right, that a lot of the major off-Broadway theater companies are doing, and Broadway producers are doing, hence with Slave Play, right? But I think that when you go out into the regions, like you're saying, it's a very different story. And I know they're working very hard also now with DEI work. Everyone's really working diligently in the American theater to try to make these audiences much more diverse. So I don't know how it's happening in the UK, but I know that's what we're doing
well,
here.
in Ireland, Ireland's diversity in Irish society is only like about a generation, you know, old, but it's been sudden. And obviously there is a big game of catch up, I think, particularly since the Irish canon is almost uniquely, you know, we were a homogeneously white society up until a generation ago, and so it's a very tricky thing. But again, as you say, theatres are working very, very hard to diversify their audience, and also to send the average age of the audience down. I mean, the grain of the audience is the huge challenge in Ireland at the moment.
Is that identified as it often is here with, oh, it's really expensive? Is it?
No.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's kind of probably, you know, it's like, say, with something like Druid, it was founded in 1975, and the people who came to see it were people around our own age, and therefore those people are there now watching the shows with grey hair and so on and so forth. So it's not really. But in Ireland as well, audiences are definitely, there's most audiences would be about 60% female and 40% male. And it's the women who tend to bring the men to the theatre, not the other way around.
75% female here.
Yeah.
We have two mics on either side, so if you could go ahead, yeah, please.
Hi, I'm Melissa Bell, and I wondered how you pick the plays that you direct, either yourself or artistic director, and you know, what do you look for in those plays, or how do you feel when you decide you want to do one?
Melissa, are you in theater yourself? I'm just curious.
Yes, I'm a playwright.
Curious, great question.
How you pick the plays? Well, in terms of new plays, we would have a program of developing new work, and in fact, Druid this year produced only new work, apart from Richard, which had been produced the previous year. So we did all new plays. Obviously, in that sense, it's the play. It's the play you read that you connect with, and that, you know, you make sense to do. In regard to other work, I think a lot of it would be, for me, would be about the combination of the play itself, the actors that I want to work with, what our audiences might want to hear or engage with. You're constantly trying, I think, to do something that is something that you feel you will be able to do, but it's not something that you did before, because if it's that, then it has no purpose, it has no energy. So it's And it's a constant debate and discussion with yourself, with your colleagues in the theatre, with the actors, with the wider profession, and so on. So choices of repertoire usually for me come at the end of a very long series of discussions.
I bet we have a lot of the same things. There are a couple of things that happen. One is you sort of come up in generations of artists, and so there are people that you love and admire that you've never worked with. There are people that you love and admire that you always work with. There are people who you're eager to find some space, some time with, and I think, and in addition, you're trying to exploit opportunity. And different theaters have different kind of identities, and what's right for ACT is not necessarily right for WP. So you're trying to find the place where you want to go, where you're loved, right? And find the play that will be a success for them, a challenge and a success, and exploit the time where we are in our own sort of history, the artists that are available, and what an audience is kind of up for. And you sort of guess at what the audience is up for. For our programming, we're looking at a lot of different people all the time, and we have a fat pipeline of artists that are coming through, and we want to give everybody some sort of we want to give really deserving artists an opportunity.
So my situation is a little different. Because I'm a freelance director, so I don't have one institution with which I work. I tend to, I'm at this stage in my career usually called a lot of the times by artistic directors, or playwrights agents will contact my agent and say, we're interested in this play for you. There are some writers who contact me directly, and I read every play that is sent to me. And if the play speaks to me and I'm excited by it, then I will contact the theaters that I have a great relationship with, that I love, I think this play may be great for. And I take a meeting and share the play. And then I, a lot of times, will, if I have an idea, a play that I'm interested in, especially a classic or musical, when I take meetings with artistic directors, I will share with them the various plays and or classics that I'm interested in, and how I'm interested in doing them, and the actors I want to work with, and how it would look. I'm very visual, so I talk a lot in sort of images and story that way, and dramaturgy. But that's really my path to bring plays.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Emily. I'm wondering, as a young woman who's about to graduate college and is looking to find a space for myself in the creative professional world, to each of you, what do you think is the characteristic within yourself that was the most essential to your success so far?
It's a great question.
Persistence.
I was about to say perseverance.
Be relentless.
Wait, you guys just use the same word in 3 different synonyms, basically.
And there are 3 big male words.
They were persistent with their sentiments, so I appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you, and thank you to Garry Hynes, Tamilla Woodard, and Leah C. Gardiner for your time and for your art. Thank you so much.